Okay, this is part 30 of Champion. June. For the first 3 weeks that Day is in the hospital, I never leave. The same people come and go. Tess, of course, who's in the waiting room as much as I am, waiting for Day to come out of his coma. Eden, who stays as long as Lucy allows him to. The other remaining Patriots, especially Posco, an endless assortment of doctors and medics who I begin to recognize and know by name after the first week, and Andon, who has returned from the war front with his own scars. Hordes of people continue to stay camped out around the hospital, but Andon doesn't have the heart to tell them to disperse, even when they continue to stake out the grounds for weeks and then months. Many of them have the familiar scarlet streaks painted into their hair. For the most part, they stay silent. Sometimes they chant. I've grown used to their presence now, to the point where it's comforting. They remind me that Day is still alive, still fighting. The war between the Republic and the colonies, at least for now, is over. The Antarcticans finally came to our rescue, bringing with them their fearsome technology and weapons that intimidated Africa and the colonies into returning to our ceasefire agreement, bringing both Andon and the Chancellor before the International Court, imposing the proper sanctions against us and them, and finally beginning the process for a permanent peace treaty. The ashes of our battlegrounds are still here, though, along with the lingering hostility. I know it will take time to close the wounds. I have no idea how long the ceasefire will last or when the Republic and the colonies will find true peace. Maybe we never will, but for now, this is good enough. One of the first things the doctors had to do for Day, after stitching up the horrific bullet wounds, was to operate on his brain. The trauma he'd suffered meant he couldn't receive the full course of medications needed to properly prep him for the surgery, but they went ahead with it. Whether or not he was ready was irrelevant at that point. If they didn't, he would have died anyway. Yet, still, this keeps me awake nights. No one really knows whether he'll wake up at all, or whether he'll be an altogether different person if he does. 2 months pass, and then 3. Gradually we all start to do our waiting at home. The hospital's crowds finally begin to thin. 5 months. Winter passes. At 07:28 hours on an early spring Thursday in March, I arrive at the hospital's waiting room for my usual check-in. As expected at this hour, I'm the only one here. Eden's at home with Lucy, getting some needed sleep. He continues to grow, and if Day were awake to see him now, I know he'd comment on how his brother is starting to lean out, losing the baby fat on his face and taking the early steps into adulthood. Even Tess isn't here yet. She tends to come in the late morning to work as a medic assistant, shadowing the doctors, and when I catch her on her breaks, we huddle together and exchange conversation in hushed voices. Sometimes she even makes me laugh. He loves you. Really, he does, she told me yesterday. He'd love you even if it destroyed him. He matches you. I guess it's kind of cute. She said this with a shy, grudging smile on her face. Somehow, she had managed to return to the place where I'd first known her, but now as someone older, taller, and wiser. I nudged her affectionately. You guys have a bond I could never touch, I replied, even when we're at our worst. She blushed at that, and I couldn't help opening my heart to her. A loving Tess is one of the sweetest sights in the world. Just be good to him, she whispered. Promise? Now, I greet the nurse at the waiting room's window, then settle down into my usual chair and look around. So empty this morning. I found myself missing Tess's companionship. I tried to distract myself with the news headlines running on the monitor. Antarctican President Ikari, United Nations show approval for new peace treaty between Republic and colonies. Elector Primo announces start of new ranking system to replace former trials. New border cities between Republic and colonies to be renamed the United Cities. To begin allowing immigration from both nations starting late next year. Senator Mariana Dupree officially inducted as Princeps of the Senate. The news headlines bring a faint smile to my face. Last night, Andon had stopped by my apartment to tell me in person about Mariana. I told him that I would extend my congratulations to her directly. She's very good at what she does, I said, more so than I was. I'm happy for her. Andon bowed his head. You would have been better in the long run, I think, he replied with a gentle smile. You understand the people, but I'm happy that you're back where you feel the most comfortable. Our troops are lucky to have you. He hesitated then, and for a moment he took my hand in his. I remember the soft neoprene lining of his gloves, the silver shine of his cufflinks. I might not get to see much of you now. Maybe it's best that way, isn't it? Still, please do drop by now and then. It'll be nice to hear from you." "Likewise," I replied, squeezing his hand in return. My thoughts snapped back to the present. One of the doctors has emerged from the hallway near Day's room. He catches sight of me, takes a deep breath, and approaches. I straighten, tensing. It's been a long time since I've heard any real updates on Day's condition from Dr. Kahn. A part of me wants to jump up in excitement because perhaps the news is good. Another part of me cringes in fear in case the news is bad. My eyes scan the doctor's face, searching for clues. Pupils slightly dilated, face anxious, but not in the manner of one who is about to break the worst news. There are hints of joy on his face. My pulse quickens. What is he going to tell me? Or perhaps it's no news at all. Perhaps he's simply going to tell me what he usually does. Not much change today, I'm afraid, but at least he's still stable. I've grown so used to hearing that. Dr. Kahn pauses before me. He adjusts his glasses and scratches unconsciously at his trim salt and pepper beard. "Good morning, Miss Ibrus," he says. "How is he?" I ask, my usual greeting. Dr. Kahn smiles but hesitates. Another oddity. The news must be significant. "Wonderful news." My heart stops for a second. Day has woken up, less than an hour ago. "He's awake?" I breathe. "He's awake." Suddenly the news is too overwhelming, and I'm not sure whether I can bear it. I study his face carefully. "There's more to it than that, though." "There's more to it than that, though, isn't there?" Dr. Kahn puts both hands on my shoulders. "I don't want to worry you, Miss Ibrus. Not at all. Day has pulled through his surgery remarkably well. When he woke up, he asked for water and then for his brother. He seems quite alert and coherent. We ran a quick scan of his brain." His voice turns more excited. "We'll need to do a more thorough check, of course, but upon first glance it seems everything has normalized. His hippocampus looks healthy and signals seem to be firing normally. In almost every aspect, the Day that we know is back." Tears prickle at the edges of my eyes. The Day that we know is back. After 5 months of waiting, the news is so sudden. 1 minute he was lying unconscious in bed, hanging on to life night by night, and now he's awake, just like that. I break into a smile with the doctor, and before I can stop myself, I hug him. He laughs, patting my head awkwardly, but I don't care. I want to see Day. "Can he have visitors?" I ask, then abruptly I realize what the doctor actually said. "Why do you say almost?" The doctor's smile wavers. He adjusts his glasses again. "It's nothing we can't fix over the course of extended therapy. You see, the hippocampus region affects memories, both short and long-term. It sees that Day's long-term memories, his family, his brother, Eden, his friend Tess, and so on, are intact. After a few questions, however, it seems that he has very little recollection of both people and events from the last year or two. We call it retrograde amnesia. He remembers his family's deaths, for instance." Dr. Kahn's voice trails off uncomfortably here. "But he does not seem familiar with Commander Jameson's name or the recent colony's invasion. He also doesn't seem to recall you." My smile fades. "He doesn't remember me?" "Of course this is something that can heal over time with proper therapy." Dr. Kahn again reassures me. "His short-term memory abilities are working well. He remembers most things I tell him and forms new memories without too much issue. I just wanted to warn you before you see him. Don't be startled that he might not remember you. Take your time and reintroduce yourself to him. Gradually, perhaps in a few years' time, his old memories might come back." I nod at the doctor as if in a dream. "Okay," I whisper. "You can see him now, if you'd like." He smiles at me as if he's delivering the greatest news in the world. And he is. But when he leaves me, I just stand there for a moment, my mind in a haze, thinking, lost. Then I take slow steps towards the hallway where Dare's hospital room is, the corridor closing in around me like a foggy, blurry tunnel. The only thing running through my head is the memory of my desperate prayer over Day's wounded body, the promise I had offered up to the heavens in exchange for his life. Let him live. I am willing to sacrifice anything to make this happen. My heart sinks, turns gray. I understand now. I know that something has answered my prayer and at the same time has also told me what my sacrifice must be. I have been offered a chance to never hurt Day again. I step into the hospital room. Day is alert, propped up on pillows, and startlingly healthier than the times I've seen him lying unconscious and wan over the past few months. But something is different now. Day's eyes follow me without a hint of familiarity in them. He's watching me with the polite, wary distance of a stranger, the way he looked at me when we first met. He doesn't know who I am. My heart aches, pulling at me as I draw closer to his bedside. I know what I have to do. Hi, he says when I sit on his bed. His eyes wander curiously across my face. Hi, I reply softly. Do you know who I am? Day looks guilty, which only digs the knife in deeper. Should I? It takes all of my effort not to cry, to bear the thought that Day has forgotten everything between us. Our night together, the ordeals we've been through, all that we've shared and lost. We have been erased from his memory, leaving nothing behind. The Day that I knew is not here. I could tell him right now, of course. I could remind him of who I am, that I'm June Ypres, the girl he had once saved on the streets and fallen in love with. I could tell him everything, just like Dr. Kahn said, and it could possibly trigger his old memories. Tell him, June. Just tell him. You'll be so happy. It'd be so easy. I need a drink, I'm sorry. Okay. Whew. But I open my mouth and no sound comes out. I can't do it. Be good to him, Tess had told me. Promise. So long as I remain in Day's life, I will hurt him. Any other alternative is impossible. I think of the way he had crouched sobbing at his family's kitchen table, mourning what I had taken away from him. Now fate has handed the solution to me on a silver platter. Day survived his ordeal, and in return I need to step out of his life. Even though he looks at me now like a stranger, he no longer has the look of pain and tragedy that always seemed to come with the passion and love the passion and love he gazed at me with. Now he is free. He is free of us, leaving me as the only bearer of our past burden. So I swallow hard, smile, and bow my head to him. Day, I force myself to say. It's good to meet you. I was sent by the Republic to see how you're doing. It's wonderful to see you awake again. The country is going to rejoice when they hear the good news. Day nods politely in return, his tenseness unmistakable. Thank you, he says wearily. The doctors tell me that I've been out for 5 months. What happened? You were injured during a battle between the Republic and the colonies, I reply. Everything I'm saying sounds like it's coming from someone else's mouth. You saved your brother Eden. Is Eden here? Day's eyes light up with recognition and a beautiful smile blossoms on his face. The sight of it brings me pain, even as I am happy that he remembers his brother. I want so much to see that look of familiarity on his face when he's talking about me. Eden will be so happy to see you. The doctors are sending for him, so he'll arrive shortly. I return a smile, and this time it's a genuine one, if bittersweet. When Day studies my face again, I close my eyes and bow slightly to him. It's time to let go. Day, I say carefully, choosing what my final words to him should be. It has been such a privilege and honor to fight by your side. You've saved many more of us than you'll ever know. For a small moment I fix my eyes on his, telling him silently everything that I'll never say to him out loud. Thank you, I whisper, for everything. Day looks puzzled by the emotion in my voice, but he bows his head in return. The honor's mine, he replies. My heart breaks in sorrow at the lack of warmth in his voice, the warmth I know I would have heard had he remembered everything. I feel the absence of the aching love that I've come to yearn for, that I wanted so much to earn. It is gone now. If he knew who I was, I would say something else to him now, something I should have said to him more often when I had the chance. Now I am sure of my feelings, and it's too late, so I fold the 3 words back into my heart for his sake, and rise from his bed. I soak in every last wonderful detail of his face and store it in my memory, hoping I can take him with me wherever I go. We exchange quiet salutes. Then I turn away for the last time. 2 weeks later, what feels like the entire city of Los Angeles turns out to see Day leave the country for good. On the morning I left Day's bedside, Antarctica came calling for both him and his brother. They'd taken note of Eden's gifted touch with engineering and offered him a place in one of their academies. At the same time, they offered Day the chance to go along. I don't join the crowds. I stay in my apartment instead, watching the events unfold while Ollie sleeps contentedly beside me. The streets around my complex are teeming with people, all jostling with one another to watch the jumbotrons. Their muffled chaos turns into white noise as I watch it unfold on my screen. Daniel, Alton Wing, and brother to leave tonight for Ross City, Antarctica. That's what the headlines say. On the screen, Day waves at the people gathered around his apartment as he and Eden are escorted to a jeep by a city patrol. I should call him Daniel like the screen does. Perhaps he truly is just Daniel now, with no need for an alias anymore. I look on as he lets his brother get into the vehicle and then follows, lost completely from view. It's so strange, I think to myself, as my hand moves absently across Ollie's fur. Not long ago, the city patrols would have arrested him on sight. Now he's leaving the Republic as their champion, to be celebrated and remembered for a lifetime. I turn the monitor off, then sit in the quiet darkness of my apartment, savoring the silence. Outside on the streets, people are still chanting his name. They chant it deep into the night. When the commotion finally dies down, I get up from my couch. I pull on my boots and a coat, then wrap a thin scarf around my neck and head out into the streets. My hair blows in the balmy night breeze, wisps catching now and then on my lashes. For a while, I wander the quiet roads on my own. I'm not sure where I'm going. Maybe I'm trying to find my way back today. But that's illogical. He's already gone, and his absence leaves a hollow, aching pain in my chest. My eyes water from the wind. I walk for an hour before I finally take a short train ride to Lake Sector. There, I stroll along the edge of the water, admiring the lights of downtown as well as the now unlit trial stadium, a haunting reminder of events long gone. Giant water wheels churn in the lake, the rhythm of their movement settling into a comforting background symphony. I don't know where I'm going. All I know is that in this moment, Lake Sector seems more like home to me than Ruby does. Here, I'm not so alone. On these streets, I can still feel the beating of Day's heart. I began to retrace my old steps, past the same lakeside buildings and the same crumbling homes, the steps I'd taken when I was a completely different person, full of hate and confusion, loss and ignorance. It's an odd feeling to wander these same streets as the person I am now, at once familiar and strange. An hour later, I pause alone before a nondescript alleyway that branches off an empty street. At the end of this alley, an abandoned high-rise towers 12 stories up, each of its windows boarded up, and its first floor just the way I remember it, with missing windows and broken glass on the floor. I step into the shadows of the building, remembering. This is where Day had first reached his hand out to me in the midst of smoke and dust and saved me so long ago, before we even discovered who the other was. This was the start of the few precious nights when we simply knew each other as a boy on the streets and a girl who needed help. The memory comes into sharp focus. There's a voice telling me to get up. When I look to my side, I see a boy holding out his hand to me. He has bright blue eyes, dirt on his face, and a beat-up old cap on, and at this moment I think he might be the most beautiful boy I've ever seen. My wandering has led me to the beginning of our journey together. I suppose it's only fitting for me to be here at that journey's end. I stand in the darkness for a long time, letting myself sink into the memories we once shared. The silence wraps me in comforting arms. One of my hands reaches over to my side and finds the old scar from where Cade had wounded me. So many memories, so much joy and sadness. Tears stream down my face. I wonder what Day is thinking at this moment while on his way to a foreign land, or whether or not some small part of him, even if it is buried deep, holds slivers of me, pieces of what we once had. The longer I stand there, the lighter the burden on my heart feels. Day will move on and live his life. So will I. We will be okay. Someday, perhaps in the far and distant future, we'll find each other again. Until then, I will remember him. I reach out to touch one of the walls, imagining that I can feel his life and warmth through it, and I look around again, up toward the rooftops, and then all the way to the night sky, where a few faint stars can be seen, and there I think I really can see him. I can feel his presence here in every stone he has touched, every person he has lifted up, every street and alley and city that has changed in the few years of his life, because he is the Republic. He is our light, and I love you, until the day we meet again. I will hold you in my heart and protect you there, grieving what we never had, cherishing what we did. I wish you were here. I love you. Always.